And now we're going to bring in our guest, Olivier Roussy Newton, which I learned how to pronounce about 20 minutes ago. Olivier, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks for having me
Olivier
on.
is
How are you?
chairman and CEO of DeFi Technologies, founder of Hive Digital Technologies, Valor Structured Products, Latin Capital, EV Technology Group, several other ventures. Sounds like you got a lot going on now and historically. Also, that's a lovely background you have there.
Thank you. Yeah,
Very
it's,
chill.
we're emerging from spring into summer here in Switzerland. So.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Well, thank you so much for diving in today. We've been neglecting, I feel like, crypto for a bit because there's been so much drama in stocks. And so I'm glad you're here. We can start kind of digging back into this side of the world. So I want to start by painting a picture for our viewers. You've been in tech for a while, in finance for a while, obviously founding DeFi Hive. Just let's get to know you a bit. What ignited your passion for DeFi specifically, and how did this become sort of the central focus of your career?
Yeah, no, I think this goes back to really high school for me, where I got kind of immersed into this world of open source technology. I think I was around 13, 14. The first iPhone was introduced. Facebook first came out, and I saw all my peers kind of consume, basically kind of become addicted to this technology platforms. I wanted to be on the other side of the trade. I'm originally from Vancouver, Canada, so I realized I could essentially kind of skip school by requesting invitations to technology conferences that were occurring in the Bay Area, San Francisco, Palo Alto, and got kind of immersed into the technology landscape, where I kind of built up an open source gaming engine that eventually I exited quite early. Had the decision to go to university or continue building, and I said, "Hey, maybe I'm good at identifying open source technologies," and that led me to kind of discover Bitcoin in around 2010, and kind of quickly thereafter got into was spending my time in between London and mainland China. Got exposed to the early kind of nascent ASIC mining industry for Bitcoin. Thought it was extremely cool. Started doing that, and operations got bigger and bigger. We were looking for capital. At this stage, 2014, 2015, our mining operations were printing money, and we were like, okay, let's raise money, right? Banks wouldn't lend to us. Venture capitalists were just setting up kind of their blockchain funds, you know, doing like $250,000 ticket sizes. We were looking for a few $100 million. And, being Canadian and being exposed to successful entrepreneurs, specifically in Vancouver, I kind of thought to myself, well, all of these, the most successful kind of Canadian entrepreneurs, or most of them, are mining entrepreneurs, traditional commodity mining entrepreneurs. So why can't I do what they do, which is just list my mining company on the stock exchange? And so, it wasn't easy. It took about a year and a half to go through kind of all of these regulatory hurdles, and partnered with a legendary kind of mining financier responsible for starting the largest gold company in the world, and he helped me kind of take my kind of concept public, and so yeah, Hive was, I think, probably the first crypto equity to list on the traditional stock exchange, and it was a euphoric launch, and then a significant, I think it was a 98% equity drawdown over 2 years, but we kept on building throughout that cycle, and then eventually kind of the stock went back up to a $3-4 billion market cap, when I decided to look at doing something new, and In the summer of 2020, I observed our Ethereum mining output revenue production quadrupled, like out of nowhere. And I was like, let's figure out what's kind of occurring here. And it was basically the advent of really the first practical use case of um, uh, blockchain technology. Aside from 2017, you had this kind of wave of ICOs, which were primarily or a large part fraudulent. But that kind of ignited kind of the rise of Ethereum, and now people were actually kind of abstracting meaningful traditional finance applications and deploying them onto the blockchain. And so I said, similar to what we did with Hive, there should be, there's a lag between what's happening in the crypto world and what's happening in the institutional capital markets. So why not create a specific, public construct for decentralized finance? And this coincided with basically a company I had co-founded called Valor several years prior. And Valor was co-founded with a Swedish entrepreneur and great friend of mine called Johan Wadenström. I had fortunately met him in 2017. He was selling his company called XBT Provider, which was basically the world's first Bitcoin ETF, which he created in 2015. I said, what? You're crazy. Why are you selling this? There's going to be thousands of products, not just Bitcoin. And people are always going to, trust their stock exchange, their broker, or there's going to be a demographic of people who want to interface with digital assets through regulated stock exchanges. So we started that company in 2017. It basically got approved. Our products got approved for listing, and we amalgamated Valor into DeFi, which essentially is now kind of a vertically integrated trading company that's publicly listed as well in Canada, and hopefully with the changes in the U.S., can make a leap over to the U.S. capital markets now.
Yeah, and Olivier, I talked to Shai earlier this week because we both are like study crypto. I'm sort of in it. He's not in it at all. And I asked him, I was like, what would it take for Bitcoin specifically to be one of these core themes you chase after? And he was saying the practical use of it. And I know Ethereum, there's the direct blockchain. What do you think that practical use that'll push people like Shai over the edge would be? Is it commerce? Is it something else?
I think he's missing the point. I think I kind of to be completely honest, Vancouver, Canada. There's this was pre-legalization of marijuana, but there was a big kind of like counterculture movement that I grew up in, distrusted government. This was when I was like 15, 16. So kind of, that all tied into kind of my, I think my kind of passion for Bitcoin and decentralized cryptocurrencies. And I'd spent so much time in Silicon Valley. The first Bitcoin meetup I went to in Amsterdam was entirely different.
What? How so?
How so? Like it smelled like marijuana. Guys were showing me how Bitcoin works by buying ecstasy on Silk Road.
Okay.
It was like nothing like I saw, but there was an insane amount of passion for, governments are going to collapse, people are going to need Bitcoin, and that is a store of value thesis. And I think you're seeing it play out in real time with what's transpiring in the world. We saw it, I remember my first large kind of, I think, Bitcoin went from $60, $70 to several $100s when all the Greek banks defaulted, right? And that was like
2014 or something.
2014.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was like the first like, wow, this is gonna work, and this is gonna be a hedge. And now you're seeing kind of, gold ripping to all-time highs. And obviously there's similarities for gold to Bitcoin. But I think, that we're seeing kind of, depreciation. I've held US Treasuries and USD in my bank account since I can remember. I'm out of USD and out of US Treasuries. Um,
Wow. So you're the reason. Kidding.
uh, you, all it takes is, it's the ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
But so, in transactions, commerce, people need a reliable alternative store of value, and the prognosis and the technology behind Bitcoin is effectively kind of, proving that.
Yeah.
I think we'll see kind of further iterations. Like we're still very early in this experimentation of digital assets and currencies, but you see, like I would have never imagined a world where you have all of the, largest bankers in the world, putting together SPACs to buy as much Bitcoin as they can, right? And all of these other, confluences of events. So I think, Bitcoin as a store of value is a great experimentation against clearly I don't want to say ineptness or, but there's lack of transparency across governments globally. And people are waking up to the fact that they can't trust that. And then other applications and, layers are emerging within all of these ecosystems. And our company tries to profit off, the volatility through our trading desk, but also offer exposure securely for people who want access to these things.
You're right about the evolution. Bitcoin is not on my radar in 2010, but I remember in 2014 I was at the Slush conference. I don't know if you're familiar with Slush. It's a really fun tech conference in the
Yep.
Nordics.
Yep. Yep.
But was there in 2014, and I remember I bought Bitcoin out of an ATM. That was one of the first ones, and I think that, yeah, from the kind of stoner hangout you were at initially to me putting literally like a cash into a machine, I think that says a lot. I want to ask you about what you think of these companies like GameStop and Strategy loading up on Bitcoin on their balance sheets. Do you think this is something that all companies should be doing?
Um, you know, I think there's a lot of, I mean, I've been in the capital markets now since I was 23 when I listed Hive. Um, so I think there's a lot of interesting capital structures that you can take when you're publicly traded. A lot can be dangerous as well. Convertible, formats and things like that. So you know, Bitcoin's a volatile asset class, and I would hope kind of I've known the team of Bitfinex for many years. I know their kind of intention is extremely genuine in terms of, they just believe, Bitcoin is kind of this store of value that needs to be the digital reserve currency. But of course, when, there's money to be made and stocks go up, you obviously find, kind of ambulance chasers or people kind of doing things to move their stocks. And I think without thinking some of these things through, and the specific financing structures that companies are taking on to acquire Bitcoin, um, I haven't looked at them, too much, but I think they're being done quickly and they can potentially backfire as well, right?
Mm. Interesting. I want to pivot quickly to DeFi because we've had you guys on the show for a bit, and I could go on all day with just on the philosophical. But let's talk about what your company actually offers. What do they do? A lot of people know DeFi as a buzzword. How should they think about DeFi in the context of DeFi technologies? And why do you believe that you guys are kind of reshaping the financial landscape?
Yeah, I mean, within, I would say the digital asset space, there's kind of a subsector called DeFi. For me, DeFi stands for decentralized finance, and that's, the abstraction of Bitcoin's blockchain technology to basically anything and everything. So we, you know, learning from kind of my prior experiences running a mining company, Bitcoin and Ethereum mining, were very CapEx intensive. You're diluting shareholders, you're depreciating your equipment that is basically reintroduced every 6 months by suppliers like Bitmain. So it's a hard treadmill to essentially kind of continue to maintain. I wanted to, learn from that experience, but have a very lean and mean, highly profitable company focusing on, trading derivatives, products. So we have several different subsidiaries. One, Stillman, which we recently acquired, is a OTC market making company that is growing extremely quickly. We have our own internal trading desk called DeFi Alpha, where we look, at systematic, zero risk, basically trading opportunities. And our largest subsidiary is Valor, which is our basically exchange traded product platform. You can kind of think of us as a mini BlackRock, but we do not operate within the US. So we provide our products in the Nordics, so Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, France, the UK, Germany, Switzerland, and we're currently kind of opening up new markets and territories in Africa, Middle East, and Asia. And all of these kind of specific kind of regulatory geographies have been more open to all of our products that are being listed. So we have about 60, soon to be kind of 100 products listed in Europe. So when you go to, through the top 100, coins, obviously we don't have all of the different coins, but we have a characterization, and from a regulatory perspective, liquidity, a number of checklists, but we provide the most cryptocurrency products to individuals through regulated stock exchanges.
Yeah, and so it's not, you guys are giving sort of institutional level access to everyday investors. I'm curious, this might be obvious for someone deep in your world, but is it this access isn't possible without an intermediary like you all, or there's just the extent of this and the level of investment, there's so much to it that it makes sense to have someone like a DeFi Technologies to simplify it, productize it, and then offer it?
Yeah.
What is I guess, what's the value prop that you guys offer?
So we have kind of indexes, we have baskets of products, we have single note, ETFs, like they're called ETPs in Europe, but it's essentially an ETF. And, for the either retail investor or institution that is not allowed to trade through a cryptocurrency exchange, we give them that regulatory security to get one-to-one exposure to the existing products that they would not want to do through a cryptocurrency exchange. I mean, it wasn't too long ago, FTX faltered, um, and all governments, specifically kind of like in Europe, US, Canada, you have to file taxes, right? So if you're buying crypto and using a crypto wallet and things like that, that's another layer of complexity, and those are things you have to declare now. Whereas if everything's in your brokerage account, it makes things a lot more simplified.
Mm.
So we also provide, research. We have a research subsidiary I forgot to mention called Reflexivity. So we, provide the most accurate kind of research for our end user, so they're, informed about what products they're purchasing, what trends we're seeing, and we really just try to make it simple, secure, for the average person and or institution to access the latest and greatest product, right? And that, I think, there's obviously kind of interesting trends that are happening, but you know, Bitcoin's cool, but human, you know, people want more than a 2x.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's like a five bagger now is like lame.
yeah,
I
yeah.
feel
Like,
Shai and I talk about this all
people
the
are like,
time. It's
people,
crazy.
yeah, exactly. So, like, oh, great. Like people, people, sometimes we see like, what are new products? Like, what am I going to do? Just make 2x on Bitcoin, right? So we always try to vet, and we specifically work with, a lot of the crypto foundations on introducing new products. So we have a good, relationship. There's a very cool product, called Core. It was basically, you can tell your colleague about this, but it allows for non-custodial staking on Bitcoin. So you can basically hold Bitcoin and earn yield on it. And
Oh, interesting.
we've abstracted that, into a product. So you can buy our Bitcoin ETF and receive just under 6% in yield. So we're trying to kind of, we're at kind of, I would say, kind of, version 1.0 of what crypto products look like. And then when you bake in all of these algorithmic, capabilities, and then, refine them into products that people can easily purchase through their, eToro, brokerage account, Robinhood, and equivalents here in Europe, Asia, then we see a very large market for that.
You alluded to trends. I'm always interested. We had someone from eToro on earlier, someone who has like line of sight across a lot of behavior activity. Is there anything within the products or types of products that surprised you, or would surprise people to hear certain
I
asset class, certain genres within crypto?
Genres within crypto, I think it definitely kind of like fluctuates and rotates, but I think, people, for me to have seen and witnessed kind of the birth of Ethereum, and seeing kind of that whole kind of, I would say, investor segment move over to Solana was something I didn't expect. And we can kind of see it based on what people are selling and buying. I think there's a lot of interest in artificial intelligence, on chain, similar to, the other, people we're talking about, the Sam Altmans and the worlds and stuff. And I think, AI is a great kind of, core use case for blockchain technology, because, can you trust Sam Altman? I think, a lot of people wouldn't. And there's a lot of, there's projects like BitTensor that are kind of basically at the, building out, the ability for, basically the AI, um, the AI chain, specifically, to be modeled like Bitcoin for some of these properties that we've seen a lot of interest in. And then, people, have obviously kind of come and gone with, specific kind of meme coins and things like that. But I think there's definitely a big shift to real value. But yeah, the biggest shocking, not shocking, but the biggest kind of thing that always takes me back when we're looking at our data is, net new inflows versus outflows. Like our demographic of customers are really holding these assets for the long term. They're not trading. Obviously, there's a segments, there's institutional orders we see that are, quick flips and things like that. But I would say, 90% of the customer base, when Bitcoin drops, they buy more. And they're really holding these things for the long term. And, I think that's also one of the selling points of our products is, they're optimized for, specific, geographies, and, you can put these things in your tax-free savings accounts and equivalent structures that all different countries have. which is hard to do when you're just holding Bitcoin with your private key, right?
Yeah, it almost sounds like a converter when you travel, sort of. They're giving you access to in other formats, other ways to the similar source, but you kind of have to finagle it differently. Um, I want to ask one more question. I know we only have a few minutes left with you, but I think something like someone like me, I'm like interested in crypto. I own some. I'm not an expert. And Shai and I talk about this a lot in the show. Is like the stories that people aren't talking about that are so important in the public markets, in crypto, and a lot of crypto headlines. It's the meme stuff or government. Like, what is like a story or theme that you think is really important in crypto right now that not enough people are talking about or paying attention to?
Um, well, I think just the fact of what's transpiring in the world and why kind of Bitcoin exists is these specific moments and tensions. Um, I think that's somewhat overlooked, but I think typically you see at least for the last few cycles you see this kind of run in gold, and then you see Bitcoin outperform gold's run and things of that nature. But I think kind of I would want to think, or I would want to um, maybe highlight kind of the innovation so thus far, and where we can actually kind of go with things, because we're just coming up with these kind of new capital constructs. We work, we're listing our products in African countries that want to essentially kind of sovereign wealth funds want to purchase Bitcoin. So I think there's this huge seismic shift of the adoption of and potentially replacement of treasury bills to other forms of value, and what derivatives will be created on top of that. We're only kind of really scratched the surface yet, right? You have MicroStrategy just basically buying, raising debt and buying shitloads of Bitcoin. But will there be like more efficient mechanisms to potentially get leveraged exposure to new store of values? I think I would like to see kind of more of an intellectual debate around that progressing in the future.
You sort of alluded to it, but do you think your products will benefit from the shift away from treasuries or
Absolutely.
products like?
We're seeing inflows, right? People want to be able to sleep at night, right? So, I definitely think we will be kind of, refining these things. But I think there's also a lot of interesting kind of, derivatives, and, we're looking more into baskets and products, right? So, you know, packaging things that, might be more vanilla, but with more esoteric kind of wrappers. I think you're just scratching the surface. Like, well, what does we're working on kind of a Bitcoin gold product, right? That has a specific balancing ratio. We might be looking at one with silver. So I think, and this is this whole nature of kind of real world assets, and how those come kind of onto the blockchain, and how you mix all of these products together is really what, keeps us up at night, and also interested in what we're doing, because we innovate, we put out products, we see in real time what's working, and what people are appreciating.
Very cool. What a cool place to be building right now. And really appreciate, Olivier, you popping in. I know we covered a lot of ground, so thank you so much. Olivier Roussy Newton from DeFi Technologies, he's the CEO.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
me.
so much. You'll have to come back.
Yeah, sure.
And to everyone else, that'll do it for me with you this week. But tomorrow we have Daily Rip Live. Don't forget. And I hear they're going to have a very special guest. You guys are going to want to tune into that. I will see you back here next week, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of stories from the Cash Tag Awards. Take it easy, everyone.